The money clinked onto the wooden table like coins into a collection plate. But this was no church, and the transaction happening here was about as far from holy as a man could get. Austin Crawford stood in the dim light of the saloon, his dusty brown hat casting shadows across his weathered face as he counted out the bills, each one feeling heavier than the last in his calloused hands. "That is the agreed amount," said the man across from him, a portly fellow with sweat staining his collar despite the cool October evening in Fort Worth, Texas. The year was 1878, and the frontier was slowly giving way to civilization, though some traditions died harder than others. Austin nodded, his jaw tight. He had just paid $300, money saved from 5 years of hard work driving cattle from Texas to Kansas, for something he never imagined he would buy. A woman. Not exactly bought like property, the man had insisted, but paid as a debt settlement. The distinction felt thin as paper. "Where is she?" Austin asked, his voice low and rough from years of shouting over thundering hooves and driving rain. "Upstairs, third door on the right. Her name is Beatrice Kelly. Irish girl, came over 2 years ago. Got herself into some trouble with debts after her father died. She was promised to my business partner, Marcus Sullivan, but he is willing to let her go if his money gets paid. You paid it, so she is yours now." The words made Austin's stomach turn. He had not planned this. He had come to Fort Worth to sell his cattle, and maybe find some work for the winter. Then he had overheard 2 men talking in this very saloon 3 nights ago about a woman who was going to be forced into marriage to settle her late father's gambling debts. Something about the whole situation had sat wrong with him, festering in his mind until he found himself making inquiries, and then, against all better judgment, making an offer. Austin climbed the narrow staircase, each step creaking under his weight. The hallway smelled of tobacco and cheap perfume. He found the third door and knocked, softer than he intended. "Come in," a voice said, barely above a whisper. He opened the door to find a small room with a single window overlooking the muddy street below. A young woman sat on the edge of a narrow bed, her hands folded in her lap. She looked up as he entered, and Austin felt his breath catch. She had dark hair pulled back in a simple braid, and her eyes were the color of summer grass, bright and defiant despite the circumstances. She could not have been more than 22 or 23 years old. "You are the one who bought me?" she asked, her Irish accent thick with emotion. There was no gratitude in her voice, only a barely contained fury that Austin found himself respecting. "I paid your debt," he corrected, though he knew it sounded like splitting hairs. "Your debt to Marcus Sullivan. And now I am indebted to you instead," Beatrice said, standing up. She was tall for a woman, nearly reaching his shoulder. "How is that any different? I was to be sold to one man, and now I belong to another." Austin removed his hat, holding it in his hands. "You do not belong to me. I do not want a woman who belongs to me." Her eyes narrowed. "Then why did you pay $300? It was a good question, one he had asked himself a dozen times over the past 3 days. "Because what they were doing was wrong. Your father's debts should not be your burden to bear. Tell that to Marcus Sullivan and his associates," she said bitterly. "They were very clear that if the debt was not settled, I would find myself in circumstances far worse than marriage." Austin felt anger rise in his chest. "They threatened you. They made their position clear," Beatrice said, wrapping her arms around herself. "I had no money, no family here, no way to pay back $300, so I agreed to marry Marcus, a man 30 years my senior who already buried 2 wives. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "And then you came along and bought me instead. Forgive me if I do not fall at your feet in gratitude." "I do not want your gratitude," Austin said. He meant it. "I have a proposition for you, Miss Kelly. "I am sure you do," she said, her voice sharp. "Not that kind of proposition," he said quickly, feeling heat rise to his face. "I have a ranch about 20 miles north of here. It is not much, just a small spread with a cabin and some land. I am starting a horse breeding operation. I need help, someone who can cook and manage the household while I work the horses. I will pay you wages, same as I would pay any hired hand. You work for me for a year, save your money, and then you are free to go wherever you please." Beatrice stared at him as if he had spoken in a foreign language. "You paid $300 to hire a housekeeper." "I paid $300 to keep you from being forced into something against your will," Austin said. "The housekeeper job is just to make it proper, so people do not talk. You would have your own room, your privacy. I would not expect anything from you except honest work." "Why should I believe you?" she asked, but he could hear the hope creeping into her voice despite her attempts to suppress it. "Because I am giving you a choice," Austin said. "You can stay here, try to make your own way in Fort Worth. I will not stop you. Or you can come work for me, earn some money, and figure out what you want to do next. Either way, your debt is paid. You do not owe Sullivan anything, and you do not owe me anything except what you choose to give." Beatrice walked to the window, looking out at the darkening street. A wagon rolled past, its wheels churning up mud. "I have nothing," she said quietly. "No possessions except the clothes I am wearing and one other dress. I have no skills except what my mother taught me about keeping a house and cooking. I have nowhere else to go." "Then come with me," Austin said. "At least until you figure out your next step." She turned to face him, studying his face with those sharp green eyes. "You are either the most decent man I have ever met or the most convincing liar. I guess you will have to take that chance to find out which," Austin said. Beatrice took a deep breath, then nodded. "When do we leave?" "First light tomorrow. I have a room at the boarding house down the street. I will arrange one for you as well for tonight, somewhere safe. Tomorrow I will get supplies and we will head out." "I should warn you," Beatrice said as she picked up a small bundle that contained her meager belongings. "I have a terrible temper when provoked. I cannot abide dishonesty, and I do not take kindly to anyone who thinks they can control me." Austin found himself almost smiling. "Duly noted, Miss Kelly. If we are to be living on the same property, you should call me Beatrice. Then you should call me Austin." They left the saloon separately, Austin making sure Beatrice was safely settled in a room at the boarding house before he returned to his own. He lay awake most of the night, wondering what he had just gotten himself into. $300 was most of his savings. He could have used that money to buy more horses, to improve his ranch, to secure his future. Instead, he had spent it on a stranger with fire in her eyes and a chip on her shoulder the size of Texas. The next morning dawned clear and cold. Austin loaded his wagon with supplies from the general store: flour, sugar, coffee, salt pork, beans, and various other necessities that would get them through the winter. He also bought fabric for curtains and a new quilt, items he had never bothered with for himself but thought Beatrice might appreciate. She met him at the wagon wearing the same dress as the night before, her single bundle clutched in her hands. Her face was pale but determined. "Ready?" he asked. "As I will ever be," she replied. The journey north took most of the day. The wagon rolled over rough terrain, following a trail that was barely more than a suggestion in the grass. Austin drove the team while Beatrice sat beside him, her back straight and her hands folded in her lap. For the first hour, neither of them spoke. Then Beatrice broke the silence. "Tell me about your ranch." "Not much to tell," Austin said. "I bought the land 3 years ago with money I saved from working cattle drives. Built the cabin myself. It is just 2 rooms right now, but I plan to add on." I have been catching wild horses, breaking and training them. People need good horses, and I have a talent for working with them. Do you live alone? I do. My parents passed when I was young. Fever took them both within a week of each other. I was raised by my uncle on his ranch in Oklahoma, but when he died, his sons inherited everything. I decided to strike out on my own, came to Texas to make my own way. I am sorry about your parents, Beatrice said softly. It was a long time ago. I am sorry about your father. Her jaw tightened. He was not a good man. He drank too much and gambled away every cent we had. When we came to America, he promised my mother a new life. She died on the ship crossing the Atlantic, and he promised me he would do better, work hard, make something of himself. Instead, he drank himself to death and left me with debts I had no way to pay. That must have been hard, Austin said. It was a relief when he died, Beatrice said bluntly. Until I learned about the debts, then it became a nightmare. Sullivan found me 3 days after the funeral, told me what my father owed. He gave me a week to come up with the money or agree to marry him. I tried to find work, but no respectable establishment would hire a single Irish girl with no references. The only offers I got were the kind that would have destroyed what little reputation I had left. Austin felt his hands tighten on the reins. Sullivan is a bastard. He is a businessman, Beatrice said, which in Fort Worth seems to amount to the same thing. They continued in silence for a while, the wagon creaking and swaying over the uneven ground. The landscape stretched out around them, endless plains of grass turning gold in the autumn sun. Austin found himself stealing glances at Beatrice, noting the way she sat with such rigid control, as if afraid to relax even for a moment. "You can trust me," he said suddenly. "I know you have no reason to believe that, but I give you my word. You are safe with me." Beatrice looked at him, really looked at him, her green eyes searching his face. "Why did you really pay my debt, Austin? The truth." He considered lying, making up some noble reason that would make him sound better than he was, but she had asked for the truth. "My mother was in a similar situation before she met my father. Her family tried to force her into a marriage she did not want. She ran away, ended up working in a saloon in Oklahoma. My father met her there, fell in love with her, and married her despite what everyone said about her past. They were happy together, truly happy. When I heard about your situation, I thought about what might have happened to my mother if someone had not given her a chance. I guess I wanted to give you the same chance my father gave her." Beatrice was quiet for a long moment. "That is either very romantic or very foolish." "Maybe both," Austin admitted. "Your father sounds like he was a good man." "He was. And my mother was the strongest woman I ever knew. She taught me that a person's past does not define their future, that everyone deserves a chance to choose their own path." "I wish I could have met her," Beatrice said. They reached the ranch as the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The cabin sat in a small valley with a creek running nearby and a grove of cottonwood trees providing shade. It was simple but well built, with a solid roof and a stone chimney. A corral stood nearby, currently empty, and a small barn provided shelter for the wagon and horses. Austin helped Beatrice down from the wagon. She stood looking at the cabin, her expression unreadable. "It is not much," he said. "It is more than I have had in a long time," she replied. "It is honest and clean, and that matters more than size." He showed her inside. The main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a stone fireplace, a rough-hewn table, and a few chairs. A doorway led to the bedroom, which was barely large enough for the bed frame and a small dresser. "You will take the bedroom," Austin said. "I will sleep out here." "That is not necessary," Beatrice protested. "This is your home, and you are my guest. I insist." He could see her weighing whether to argue further, but finally she nodded. "Thank you." They unloaded the wagon together as darkness fell. Austin lit lamps inside the cabin, filling the space with warm light. Beatrice immediately set about organizing the kitchen supplies, moving with the efficient confidence of someone who knew their way around a household. "Are you hungry?" she asked. "I could eat," Austin admitted. "Then let me earn my keep," Beatrice said. "I may not have much, but I can cook a decent meal." She proved true to her word. Within an hour, she had salt pork sizzling in a pan, beans warming over the fire, and biscuits baking in the Dutch oven. The cabin filled with smells that made Austin's mouth water. He could not remember the last time someone had cooked for him. They ate at the table, the meal simple but satisfying. Beatrice had a healthy appetite, which Austin found himself appreciating. Too many women he had known picked at their food like birds. "This is excellent," he said. "It is basic," Beatrice replied, but he could see the pleasure in her eyes at the compliment. "When we were back in Ireland, before things got bad, my mother taught me to make do with whatever we had." She could turn the humblest ingredients into something wonderful. "You learned well." After dinner, Beatrice insisted on cleaning up while Austin tended to the horses. When he came back inside, she had already put away all the supplies and was hanging the new curtains he had bought. "You did not have to do that tonight," he said. "I needed to keep busy," she admitted. "If I stop moving, I start thinking too much." "About what?" She turned to face him. "About how my entire life changed in the span of 2 days. About how I am standing in a cabin in the middle of Texas with a man I barely know, trusting him with everything because I have no other choice." "You have choices," Austin said gently. "Maybe not as many as you would like, but they are yours to make." "Are they?" Beatrice asked. "Or am I just trading one cage for another, this one slightly more comfortable?" Austin felt those words hit him like a punch. "Is that how you see this? As a cage?" she sighed, wrapping her arms around herself. "I do not know what I see yet. I am grateful, truly I am. What you did was kind, and I know I have not been gracious about it, but I am also terrified. I do not know you. I do not know what you really want from me. Every man I have ever known has wanted something." "I want you to be safe," Austin said. "I want you to have a chance to figure out what you want from life. That is all." "Why?" she pressed. "Why do you care what happens to me?" "Because someone should," he said simply. "Because you deserve better than what life has handed you, because it is the right thing to do." Beatrice studied him in the lamplight, and he could see her struggling with whether to believe him. Finally, she nodded. "I will work hard for you, Austin. I will earn my wages honestly, and I will try to trust you, though it will not come easily. That is all I ask." She bid him good night and retreated to the bedroom, closing the door softly behind her. Austin made up a bedroll on the floor near the fireplace. The cabin felt different with another person in it, more alive somehow. He lay awake listening to the sounds of Beatrice moving around in the bedroom, settling in for the night. He had not lied to her, but he had not told her the complete truth either. Yes, he had paid her debt because it was the right thing to do, but there was more to it than that. From the moment he had seen her sitting on that bed in the saloon, defiant and proud despite her circumstances, something had shifted in his chest. He did not believe in love at first sight. That was the stuff of dime novels. But recognition, that was different. He had recognized something in her, a strength and determination that matched his own. The next morning, Austin woke before dawn to find Beatrice already up and working. She had the fire going and coffee brewing, filling the cabin with its rich aroma. "You did not have to get up so early," he said. "I am used to it," she replied. "Besides, if I am going to work for you, I should keep proper hours." They fell into a routine over the following weeks. Austin would spend his days working with the horses he had already caught, gentling them and teaching them to accept a saddle and bridle. Beatrice managed the household, cooking meals that were consistently delicious, keeping the cabin clean, and making small improvements that turned the rough bachelor quarters into something more like a home. She was skilled with a needle and thread, he discovered. She mended his worn shirts and sewed curtains for the windows. She also proved to have a sharp mind for numbers, helping him figure out the finances of his horse operation and suggesting ways to improve his profit margins. "You should charge more for the trained horses," she said one evening as they reviewed his ledger. "You put in weeks of work with each animal. A man buying a green horse might pay $20, but a horse that is fully broke and trained, that is worth at least $50, maybe more." "People will not pay that much," Austin protested. "The right people will," Beatrice insisted. "You are not selling to cowboys who want cheap mounts. You are selling to ranchers and businessmen who want reliable horses they can trust. Quality commands a price." She was right, as he discovered when he sold his next horse to a rancher from Dallas. The man paid $60 without blinking, saying it was worth it for an animal that did not spook at gunfire or stampede. As the weeks passed, Austin found himself looking forward to the end of each day when he could come back to the cabin and find Beatrice waiting. They would eat dinner together and talk about everything and nothing. She told him about her childhood in Ireland, about the green hills and the rain that fell like tears from heaven. He told her about the cattle drives, about seeing 1,000 head of longhorns stretched across the plains like a river of horns and hide. Slowly, carefully, Beatrice began to relax around him. Her smiles came more easily, and sometimes he even heard her humming while she worked. The rigid tension she had carried in her shoulders began to ease. One cold November morning, Austin was working with a particularly stubborn Mustang in the corral when he noticed Beatrice watching from the fence. The horse, a beautiful buckskin with a black mane, kept shying away every time Austin approached with the saddle. "You are scaring him," Beatrice called out. Austin paused. "I am not doing anything different than I usually do." "You are frustrated and he can sense it. Animals always know when you are tense." Austin took a breath and forced himself to relax his shoulders. "Any other advice?" "Try singing to him." "Singing? My father had a way with horses when he was sober. He always sang to them. Irish songs, old ballads. The words did not matter, just the sound of a calm voice." Feeling slightly foolish, Austin started humming a tune his mother used to sing. To his surprise, the horse's ears pricked forward with interest. He took a step closer, still humming, and the buckskin did not move away. Beatrice came into the corral, moving slowly and carefully. "May I?" Austin handed her the saddle blanket. She approached the horse, singing softly in Gaelic, her voice clear and sweet. The buckskin watched her but stood still, and within minutes she had the blanket on his back. "You have a gift," Austin said, impressed. "I spent more time in the stables than in the house when I was a girl," Beatrice said, stroking the horse's neck. "It was the only place I felt peace." Working together, they got the saddle on the buckskin. The horse accepted it with only a token protest, his attention focused on Beatrice's soothing voice. After that day, Beatrice started helping Austin with the horses. She had a natural way with them that complemented his own skills. Where he was patient and methodical, she was intuitive and gentle. Together, they made an effective team. December arrived with cold winds and occasional snow. Austin added on to the cabin, building a second bedroom so he would have proper sleeping quarters. Beatrice helped with the construction, proving herself handy with a hammer. "You are full of surprises," Austin said as he watched her expertly drive a nail. "My father was useless with tools," she said. Someone had to keep our house from falling down around our ears. The new room was finished just before Christmas. They celebrated quietly, with Beatrice making a special dinner of roasted chicken and potatoes. Austin had bought her a gift in town, a warm wool cloak lined with fur. When she opened it, tears filled her eyes. "This is too much," she said. "You need a proper winter coat," Austin replied, embarrassed by her emotion. "It gets cold out here." "I have never had anything so fine," Beatrice said, running her hands over the soft fabric. She looked up at him. "Thank you, Austin, for this and for everything else." "You have earned it 10 times over," he said honestly. "This place has never run so smoothly." "I got you something too," she said, suddenly shy. She pulled out a package wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a shirt she had sewn from new fabric with careful stitching and pearl buttons. It fit him perfectly when he tried it on. "How did you know my size?" he asked. "I have been mending your clothes for months," she said. "I pay attention." They sat by the fire that evening, drinking coffee spiked with whiskey Austin had been saving. The cabin was warm and cozy, the snow falling softly outside the windows. "I have been thinking," Beatrice said, staring into her cup, "about what happens when the year is up." Austin felt his chest tighten. He had been trying not to think about that. "You still have 6 months, I know. But I should plan ahead, figure out where I will go." "You could stay," Austin said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "If you wanted to, I could keep paying you wages, or we could work out some kind of partnership arrangement." Beatrice looked at him, her green eyes reflecting the firelight. "Why would you want that?" "Because you are good at this. Because we work well together. Because this place feels empty when I imagine you gone." It was as close to a confession as he dared come. He held his breath, waiting for her response. "I will think about it," she said softly. January brought bitter cold and frozen ground. Austin and Beatrice stayed close to the cabin, working on indoor projects. She taught him to cook beyond the basics, and he taught her to read and write better than the rudimentary skills she had learned as a child. They sat at the table in the evenings, Beatrice practicing her letters while Austin read aloud from the newspapers he bought in town. Sometimes their hands would brush as they reached for the same item, and Austin would feel a jolt of awareness run through him. He was falling in love with her. He knew it the way he knew the sky was blue and water was wet, an undeniable truth that had crept up on him so gradually he could not pinpoint the exact moment it happened. Maybe it had started that first night in the saloon, or maybe it had grown slowly through all these shared meals and quiet conversations. Either way, it was there, a constant ache in his chest whenever he looked at her. But he did not tell her. She was just starting to trust him, just beginning to see this place as a refuge rather than another trap. If he confessed his feelings, she might feel obligated to reciprocate, or worse, she might feel she had to leave. So he kept his silence and tried to be content with her presence. February arrived with a warm spell that melted the snow. Austin decided to make a trip to Fort Worth for supplies. Beatrice asked to come with him. "Are you sure?" he asked. "We will be there overnight at least." "I need to face it sometime," she said. "I cannot hide out here forever, afraid of my own shadow." They made the journey in good time, arriving in Fort Worth late in the afternoon. Austin arranged for separate rooms at the boarding house, then they went to the general store for supplies. As they were leaving the store, a man's voice called out, "Well, well, if it is not the little Irish girl." Austin turned to see Marcus Sullivan standing on the boardwalk, his expensive suit and polished boots marking him as a man of means. He was in his 50s with a florid face and calculating eyes. Beatrice stiffened beside Austin, her hand gripping his arm. "Sullivan," Austin said coldly. "Crawford," Sullivan replied. his eyes moving between them with obvious interest. "I heard you paid off the girl's debt." "Quite the charitable gesture." "Her debt is settled," Austin said. "She does not owe you anything." "I never said she did," Sullivan replied smoothly. "Though I wonder if she knows what kind of man she is living with now, a drifter with a hardscrabble ranch and no prospects. She could have had security with me, a nice house in town, a position of respect." "She has more respect now than she would ever have as your wife," Austin said, his voice dangerous. Sullivan's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Crawford. You may have bought your way into this situation, but money is not the only kind of power in this town." "Is that a threat?" Austin asked, taking a step forward. Beatrice put a hand on his chest. "He is not worth it, Austin. Let us go." Sullivan laughed. "Listen to the girl, Cowboy. She knows which side her bread is buttered on." Austin wanted to plant his fist in Sullivan's smug face, but Beatrice was right. He let her pull him away, loading the supplies into the wagon with hands that shook with suppressed anger. "I am sorry," Beatrice said as they walked back to the boarding house. "I knew there was a chance we might see him." "You have nothing to apologize for," Austin said. "He is a snake." That evening they had dinner at a small restaurant. Beatrice was quiet, picking at her food. "Talk to me," Austin said gently. "Seeing him again brought it all back," she said. "The fear, the helplessness. For months I thought I would have to marry him, that I had no choice. Even after you paid the debt, part of me kept waiting for it to be a trick, for someone to tell me I still belonged to him." "You do not belong to anyone," Austin said fiercely. "Not him, not me. You are your own person, Beatrice." She looked up at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Do you really believe that?" "I do, and I need you to believe it too." "I am trying," she whispered. "You have given me so much, Austin. A home, work, respect. You have treated me like a person, not a possession. You have no idea how rare that is." "You deserve all of that and more," he said. She reached across the table and took his hand. It was the first time she had initiated physical contact, and Austin felt his heart race at the touch. "I have been thinking about your offer," she said, "about staying past the year." "You do not have to decide now," Austin said, though every fiber of his being wanted to hear her say yes. "I want to stay," Beatrice said. "Not as an employee, but as a partner. Equal stake, equal say in how the ranch is run. I have ideas for expanding the operation, ways we could do more than just breaking horses." Austin could hardly believe what he was hearing. "You want to be my business partner, if you will have me," she said. "I know it is unconventional, but we work well together. We have proven that. And I think we could build something really special if we combined our efforts." "Yes," Austin said immediately. "Absolutely yes. We can draw up papers making it official, a 50-50 partnership." Beatrice smiled, a real smile that lit up her whole face. "Thank you, Austin." They stayed up late that night talking in the boarding house sitting room, making plans for the future. Beatrice suggested breeding horses rather than just catching and breaking wild ones, creating a line of quality animals that would command premium prices. Austin proposed expanding into cattle as well, using the horses to work small herds. The excitement in her voice as she talked about her ideas made Austin's heart soar. This was what freedom looked like on her, this passion and energy. She was not the defeated woman he had met in the saloon 6 months ago. She was vibrant and alive, full of dreams and determination. They returned to the ranch the next day, both of them eager to start implementing their plans. Austin rode into Fort Worth the following week and filed the partnership papers with a lawyer, making everything legal and official. Beatrice Kelly was now half-owner of the ranch. Spring arrived with wildflowers blooming across the prairie. Austin and Beatrice worked from dawn to dusk, building new corrals, improving the barn and acquiring their first breeding stock, a magnificent stallion and 3 quality mares. They moved through their days in easy synchronization, anticipating each other's needs and supporting each other's efforts. Austin found himself hyper-aware of Beatrice's presence, the sound of her laughter, the way she bit her lower lip when she was thinking hard about something. One warm April evening, they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. The day's work was done, the horses settled in the corral. "I love it here," Beatrice said softly. "I never thought I would say that about anywhere, but I do. This place feels like home." "I am glad," Austin said, his heart pounding. He had been waiting for the right moment, and somehow this felt like it. "Beatrice, there is something I need to tell you." She turned to look at him, her face open and curious. "What is it?" "I love you," he said, the words rushing out. "I have loved you for months now, maybe since the beginning. I know that was not part of our arrangement, and I do not expect you to feel the same way, but I could not keep it inside anymore. You deserve to know the truth." Beatrice stared at him, her eyes wide. "Austin." "You do not have to say anything," he said quickly. "Nothing has to change. We are partners, and that is enough for me if it is all you want." "Stop talking," she said, and then she was kissing him. It was soft and sweet and everything Austin had dreamed about during long, lonely nights. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "I love you too," Beatrice said, her forehead resting against his. "I fought it for so long because I was afraid. Afraid it was not real, afraid you would turn out to be like every other man who claimed to care about me. But you are not. You are good and kind and true, and I love you with everything I have." Austin kissed her again, deeper this time, his hands coming up to cup her face. She melted against him, her fingers tangling in his hair. They sat on that porch until the stars came out, talking and kissing and making plans for a future together. Austin proposed properly, with a ring he had his eye on in Fort Worth, a simple gold band with a small emerald that matched her eyes. "Yes," Beatrice said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." They were married in June by a traveling preacher who came through the area. It was a simple ceremony with just a few neighbors as witnesses, but it was perfect. Beatrice wore a dress she had sewn herself from white cotton, and Austin wore his best suit. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Austin kissed his bride like he was sealing a promise, a vow to spend the rest of his life making her happy. Their wedding night was tender and passionate, years of loneliness and longing finally finding release in each other's arms. Beatrice came to him with trust and love, and Austin treated her with the reverence she deserved. Afterward, they lay tangled together in bed, her head on his chest and his arms around her. "I cannot believe this is real," Beatrice whispered. "That I am actually happy." "Believe it," Austin said, kissing the top of her head. "This is as real as it gets." The ranch prospered under their joint management. The breeding program proved successful, and by the end of their first year as a married couple, they had sold several foals at prices that made even Beatrice's ambitious projections look conservative. They added onto the cabin again, creating a proper kitchen and a sitting room. Beatrice filled the house with small touches, curtains she sewed, rugs she braided, furniture Austin built under her direction. It became a real home, warm and welcoming. In the spring of 1880, Beatrice discovered she was pregnant. Austin was overjoyed, though he fretted over her constantly, worried about her health. "Women have babies every day," Beatrice told him with amusement as he tried to insist she stop working with the horses. "I am not made of glass. You are precious," he corrected. "And I will not risk you or the baby." She compromised by taking on lighter duties, focusing on the bookkeeping and planning while Austin handled the physical work. As her belly grew, Austin found himself in awe of the miracle happening inside her. One evening in late October, he put his hand on her stomach and felt the baby kick. "Did you feel that?" Beatrice asked, her face glowing with wonder. "I did," Austin said, his voice thick with emotion. "That is our child, our son," Beatrice said. "I am convinced it is a boy." She was right. In early November, after a long labor that had Austin pacing the cabin like a caged animal, Beatrice delivered a healthy baby boy. They named him Daniel, after Austin's father. Holding his son for the first time, Austin felt his heart expand in ways he had not known were possible. This tiny, perfect human was his and Beatrice's, a product of their love and commitment to each other. "He has your eyes," Beatrice said, exhausted but happy as she watched Austin cradle the baby. "And your determination, if his grip on my finger is any indication," Austin replied. Being parents changed them in fundamental ways. Austin had never known he could function on so little sleep, and Beatrice discovered reserves of patience she had not known she possessed. But they navigated it together, supporting each other through the challenging moments and celebrating every small milestone. Daniel was an easy baby, quick to smile and generally content. As he grew, it became clear he had inherited his father's love of horses. By the time he was 2, he would sit in the corral for hours, watching the horses with rapt attention. The ranch continued to grow. They hired a hand to help with the work, a young man named Tom who had a good way with animals and did not mind taking direction from a woman. Beatrice ran the business side of the operation with sharp efficiency, negotiating deals and managing their finances with skill that would have put many businessmen to shame. In the fall of 1882, Beatrice discovered she was pregnant again. This time it was twins, a boy and a girl. The pregnancy was harder on her, and Austin insisted she rest more. "I am running a ranch, raising a toddler and growing 2 humans," Beatrice said. "I do not have time to rest." "Make time," Austin said firmly. "I did not marry you just to lose you to stubbornness." She grumbled but complied, and in the spring of 1883 she delivered healthy twins. A boy they named Patrick, after her father despite his flaws, and a girl they named Catherine after Austin's mother. With 3 children under the age of 4, life became beautifully chaotic. The cabin rang with laughter and crying, and Austin could not remember ever being happier. Watching Beatrice with their children, seeing the love and joy on her face, he was reminded every day of how lucky he was. One evening, when the children were finally asleep and they had a rare moment of peace, Beatrice sat beside him on the porch. "You remember what I was like when we met?" she asked. "Angry and terrified," Austin said honestly, "but strong, always strong." "I thought my life was over," Beatrice said. "I thought I would be trapped forever belonging to men who saw me as property, and then you came along and changed everything." "You changed everything," Austin corrected. "You chose freedom. You chose to build a life rather than accept what others decided for you. I just gave you the opportunity." "You gave me so much more than that," Beatrice said. "You gave me love and respect and partnership. You saw me as a person when no one else did. You made me believe I deserved happiness." Austin took her hand, rubbing his thumb across her knuckles. "You always deserved it. I am just grateful you let me be part of it." "We make a good team," Beatrice said. "The best," Austin agreed. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out over the prairie. In the distance, they could hear the horses moving in the corral and the soft sound of the creek. "I have been thinking," Beatrice said. "We should expand again. Maybe hire another hand or 2, increase our breeding stock. We could make this ranch one of the premier horse operations in Texas." Austin smiled. His wife's ambition had no limits, and he loved that about her. "Whatever you think is best, you have not steered us wrong yet," Over the next several years, they did exactly that. The ranch grew from a small operation to a respected business. People came from across Texas and beyond to buy their horses, which were known for their quality and temperament. Daniel grew into a serious boy with his father's quiet strength and his mother's sharp mind. Patrick was more adventurous, always getting into mischief, while Catherine was sweet and gentle but with a core of steel that reminded Austin of Beatrice. In 1887, Beatrice gave birth to their fourth child, another boy they named Samuel. At 31, she declared this would be their last, and Austin readily agreed. 4 healthy children were more of a blessing than he had ever dared dream of. The children grew up surrounded by horses and wide open spaces, learning the value of hard work and the importance of family. Austin taught them to ride and work with animals, while Beatrice made sure they learned to read and write and do mathematics. As the years passed, Austin and Beatrice's love only deepened. They had their disagreements, of course. 2 strong-willed people rarely agreed on everything. But they had learned to communicate, to listen to each other, to find compromises that honored both their needs. One warm summer evening in 1890, they sat on the porch after putting the children to bed. The ranch had never been more prosperous, with horses grazing in multiple pastures and a bunkhouse for the 3 hands they now employed. "Sometimes I can hardly believe this is our life," Beatrice said, leaning against Austin's shoulder. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" "Sometimes," Austin admitted. "If I had not been in that saloon that night, if I had not heard about your situation, if you had not agreed to come with me, I would probably be dead," Beatrice said bluntly, "or wish I was." "You saved my life, Austin. You saved mine," he replied. "I was just existing before you came along, going through the motions. You gave me purpose, a reason to build something that would last. We built it together," Beatrice said. "Everything we have, we created as partners." "Equal in all things," Austin agreed. She turned to kiss him, still as sweet and exciting as the first time despite 12 years of marriage and 4 children. "I love you, Austin Crawford." "I love you, Beatrice Crawford," he replied. They watched the sunset together, the sky turning brilliant shades of orange and pink. In the distance, they could hear Daniel and Patrick arguing about something, and Catherine's voice trying to mediate. Samuel's high-pitched laughter rang out, the sound of pure childhood joy. This was their legacy, Austin thought. Not just the ranch or the horses or the land, but this family they had created together. These children who would grow up knowing they were loved and valued. They would teach them to be strong and kind, to work hard and dream big, to treat others with respect regardless of gender or station. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Austin pulled Beatrice closer. They had started from nothing, 2 broken people who found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances. But together they had built something beautiful and lasting, a life full of love and meaning. "What are you thinking about?" Beatrice asked. "How grateful I am," Austin said. "For all of this, for you, for our family. For every choice that led us to this moment. Even the hard ones," she asked. "Especially the hard ones," he replied. "They made us who we are." Beatrice settled more comfortably against him. "Then I am grateful too. For the cowboy who bought a woman promised to another and gave her the freedom to choose. For the love I found when I stopped running from fear. For every day we have built this life together." They sat in peaceful silence as night fell completely, surrounded by everything they had created. The ranch would continue to grow and prosper. Their children would grow up strong and capable, eventually having families of their own. But this moment, this perfect evening of contentment and love, was a gift they would both treasure forever. Inside the cabin, Young Samuel started crying, probably having woken from a nightmare. Beatrice sighed and started to stand, but Austin gently pushed her back down. "I will go," he said. "You rest." He kissed her forehead and went inside to comfort their youngest son, leaving Beatrice on the porch with a smile on her face. This was her life now, so different from the terrified girl in a Fort Worth saloon all those years ago. She had chosen freedom, and in doing so, had found something even more precious. A love that honored her strength, a partnership built on mutual respect, and a family that filled her heart to overflowing. The years continued to pass in a steady rhythm of seasons and celebrations. Daniel turned out to have a remarkable talent for training horses, able to gentle even the most difficult animals with patience that belied his youth. Patrick preferred the business side, showing an aptitude for numbers and negotiation that reminded everyone of his mother. Catherine developed a love for healing, caring for injured animals with a tender touch that suggested she might one day become a doctor, though Austin worried about the obstacles she would face as a woman in that profession. Samuel was still young, but already showing signs of being the adventurous spirit of the family. In 1895, when Daniel turned 15, Austin began teaching him the finer points of horse breeding, sharing the knowledge he had accumulated over nearly 2 decades. The boy listened intently, asked intelligent questions, and showed genuine passion for the work. "He will be better at this than I ever was," Austin told Beatrice one night. "He learned from the best," she replied. "Both of us." That same year, Fort Worth continued its transformation from frontier town to modern city. The railroad had brought commerce and growth, and the rough edges Austin remembered from his early days there had been smoothed away by progress. On a trip to town for supplies, he and Beatrice ran into Marcus Sullivan on the street. The man had aged poorly, his face even more florid, his expensive clothes unable to hide his decline. He looked at them with bitter recognition. "Crawford," he said curtly. "Mrs. Crawford." "Sullivan," Austin replied evenly. The man's eyes moved over Beatrice, taking in her fine dress and confident bearing. "I heard you have done well for yourself," he said to her. "4 children and a successful ranch, quite the accomplishment." "I have been very fortunate," Beatrice said, her voice cool but polite. "I hope life has treated you well also." "Well enough," Sullivan said, though his tone suggested otherwise. He looked between them for a moment, then said, "I suppose I should thank you, Crawford. If you had not interfered, I might have made the mistake of marrying a woman who clearly was meant for greater things than being my wife." It was as close to an apology or admission of wrong as they were likely to get. Austin simply nodded. As they walked away, Beatrice squeezed his hand. "That felt good," she admitted, seeing him and feeling nothing but pity. "Once upon a time he represented my worst nightmare. Now he is just a sad old man." "You have come a long way," Austin said proudly. "We both have," she corrected. That evening, back at the ranch, they gathered the family for dinner. It had become a tradition, this nightly meal where they all came together to share their day and enjoy each other's company. The table Austin had built in the early days of the ranch had been replaced with a larger one to accommodate their growing family, and the simple cabin had expanded into a proper ranch house with multiple bedrooms and modern conveniences. As Austin looked around the table at his family, laughing and talking over each other in their eagerness to share stories, he felt a profound sense of contentment. This was success, not measured in money or land, but in the love and connection between the people in this room. After dinner, while Beatrice put Samuel to bed, Austin stepped outside. Daniel followed him as he often did these days. "Father," the boy said, "can I ask you something?" "Always," Austin replied. "How did you know Mother was the one?" that you wanted to spend your life with her? Austin considered the question carefully. I recognized something in her from the very beginning, a strength and determination that called to something in me. But love grew over time, through shared work and honest conversation and choosing each other every day. Why do you ask? Daniel flushed slightly. There is a girl in town, Sarah Martin. I think I might like her. Austin smiled. His eldest son was growing up. Does she like you back? I think so. Maybe. I do not know, Daniel said, suddenly looking very young despite his 15 years. Then you should find out, Austin advised. But remember what your mother and I have taught you. A good relationship is built on respect and partnership. Look for someone who challenges you to be better, who sees you as an equal, who you can talk to about anything. Like you and mother, Daniel said. Like your mother and me, Austin agreed. Later that night, after all the children were asleep, Austin and Beatrice lay in bed together. He told her about Daniel's question and the advice he had given. Our boy is growing up, Beatrice said, a note of wistfulness in her voice. Soon they all will be, and then where will we be? Here, Austin said, pulling her close. Together, watching them build their own lives, being proud of the people they become. I want them to know love like ours, Beatrice said. Real love, built on choice and respect and partnership. They will, Austin assured her. We are teaching them by example every day. In 1898, when Beatrice was 42 and Austin was 43, they celebrated 20 years of marriage. The children, now ranging in age from 11 to 18, organized a surprise party with neighbors and friends from across the county. Standing in their ranch house, surrounded by the community they had built and the family they had raised, Austin gave a toast. 20 years ago, I made the best decision of my life when I paid $300 to free a woman from a debt that should never have been hers to bear. But I gained so much more than I gave. I gained a partner who made me a better man, a wife who filled my life with love and purpose, and a family that is my greatest achievement. To Beatrice, the strongest woman I know, thank you for choosing freedom and for choosing me. Beatrice stood, her eyes bright with tears. And to Austin, who showed me that real strength is found in gentleness. That power comes from lifting others up rather than holding them down, and that love is not about possession but partnership. Thank you for seeing me when others only saw a commodity, for believing in me when I had stopped believing in myself, and for building this beautiful life with me. Their children applauded, and then they were surrounded by well-wishers offering congratulations and sharing stories about the impact Austin and Beatrice had made on the community. They had become respected figures in the region, known not just for their successful ranch, but for their integrity, and the way they treated everyone with dignity regardless of their station in life. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Austin and Beatrice found a quiet moment alone on the porch, the same porch where they had shared so many important conversations over the years. 20 years, Beatrice mused. It feels like both forever and no time at all. The best 20 years of my life, Austin said. Mine too, she agreed. Though if you had told that terrified girl in the saloon that this would be her future, she never would have believed it. She was brave enough to take a chance, Austin said. That is what mattered. Beatrice leaned her head on his shoulder. I took a chance on you and you took a chance on me. We both won. The years continued their steady march forward. Daniel married Sarah Martin in a beautiful ceremony in 1901, and Austin and Beatrice became grandparents the following year when their first grandchild was born. Patrick went to college in Dallas, studying business, while Catherine defied expectations and began training as a nurse, the closest she could get to her dream of being a doctor given the limitations placed on women. Samuel, the adventurous one, talked about seeing the world beyond Texas. Though he always promised to come back, through it all, Austin and Beatrice remained each other's anchor and support. They had weathered droughts and harsh winters, economic downturns and personal losses. But they had weathered them together, their bond growing stronger with each challenge overcome. In 1905, on a warm spring evening much like the one where Austin had first confessed his love all those years ago, they sat on the porch of their ranch house. Austin was 50, his hair now streaked with silver, and Beatrice was 49, still beautiful in his eyes though time had left its gentle marks. "You have any regrets?" Beatrice asked him suddenly. Austin thought about it seriously, as he always did when she asked him important questions. "Not a one," he finally said. "Every choice I made led me here to you, to this life. How could I regret any of that? Even spending all your savings on a stranger in a saloon," she teased. "Especially that," he said, taking her hand. "That $300 bought me everything that matters. You, our children, this life we built together. Best investment I ever made." Beatrice laughed. "You are a terrible businessman if you think $300 was a fair price for all this." "Then I am a terrible businessman and a lucky man," Austin said. "I can live with that." She kissed him, still sending sparks through him after 27 years of marriage. "I love you, Austin Crawford. Thank you for buying a woman promised to another and setting her free." "I love you, Beatrice Crawford. Thank you for choosing freedom and choosing me." They sat together as the sun set over the ranch they had built from nothing, the land they had worked and loved and made their own. In the distance, they could see Daniel working with the horses, carrying on the tradition they had started. Catherine was visiting for the weekend, her nursing certification finally complete, ready to start her career helping others. Patrick's letters from Dallas spoke of his success in business, of how he was applying the lessons they had taught him about integrity and hard work. Samuel, at 16, was around somewhere, probably getting into some kind of harmless trouble. This was their legacy. Not just the successful ranch or the healthy children, but the proof that love built on mutual respect and genuine partnership could not only survive but thrive. They had started as a desperate transaction in a Fort Worth saloon, but they had become a love story for the ages, a testament to the power of choice and the strength found in true equality. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Austin and Beatrice remained on the porch, hands clasped, hearts full. They had found freedom and love in each other, and they had built a life that honored both. It was more than either of them had ever dared dream possible, and it was everything they needed. The ranch would outlive them, passed down through generations of children and grandchildren. But the love they shared, the partnership they forged, and the respect they showed each other would be their true inheritance, a gift that would echo through the years long after they were gone. For now, though, they simply sat together in the peaceful Texas evening, grateful for every moment that had brought them to this place, for every choice that had led them to each other, and for the freedom they had found in love.